Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Harold and Tina Clouse and their daughter, Holly Marie Clouse? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Harold Dean Clouse Jr. was born on June 7, 1960. He went by his middle name, Dean. He grew up with his family in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. His father died when he was young. Dean appears to have been active in the Jesus movement. I'll talk more about this religious movement in the analysis. Toward the end of the 1970s, Dean started dating a 15-year-old named Tina Gail Lynn. Tina was born on September 21, 1963. Like Dean, she also lived in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Also like Dean, Tina lost her father when she was young. Dean's sister was dating Tina's brother, which may explain how the couple met. On June 25, 1979, Dean and Tina married at the Volusia County Courthouse. About 7 months later, on January 24, 1980, they had a daughter named Holly Marie. The couple originally planned to raise their daughter in the area, but then decided to move to Texas after Dean found a job with a construction company. In the summer of 1980, Dean borrowed his mother's maroon 1978 two-door AMC Concorde and drove to Texas with his wife and daughter. AMC did not exactly have a good reputation as far as quality. They marketed the Concorde as a luxury vehicle, which meant that the driver would enjoy exceptional comfort as they retraced their route along the highway looking for parts that had fallen off their car. After arriving in Texas, the couple lived in Louisville with Dean's cousin, but soon they found their own residence. Tina mailed letters to her family, with the last one arriving in December of 1980. Dean and Tina were having a tough time financially, but were otherwise doing well. At some point not long after this, the couple was murdered. Their remains were found in the woods just north of Houston, Texas, by a dog, sometime between January 6 and January 11, 1981. The location of their bodies was about 250 miles south of where they had lived. The only physical evidence other than the remains identified at the crime scene was a towel with blood evidence on it. The police believed that they were murdered between December 1980 and early January 1981. The authorities did not know who they were at that time. They only knew that the male victim had been beaten to death and the female victim had been strangled. The case of this double homicide went cold. Sometime around when the couple went missing, two women who were barefoot and members of a nomadic religious group dropped Holly off at a church in Arizona. They explained that their religion called for the separation of male and female members, not using or wearing leather goods, and being vegetarian. They further indicated that they had once given up a baby at a laundromat. It's not clear why the women mentioned the laundromat part. Maybe they were trying to impress people at the church with their experience, like their baby dropping skills were so renowned that they could even pull off the laundromat venue. The police believe that the religious group that the women belonged to had operated in California, Arizona, and possibly Texas. A few weeks after the couple's families lost touch with them, a woman identifying herself as Sister Susan contacted Dean's family by telephone and said her religious group wanted to return the AMC Concorde. Sister Susan offered to drive the vehicle from Los Angeles, California, back to Florida for a generous donation of $1,000. Dean's family agreed, but they also contacted the police. $1,000 to drive the car out was a lot, considering that vehicle only cost $4,000 brand new, and it was 3 years old. The religious group arranged to meet Dean's family at the Daytona Speedway. Sister Susan and two younger women arrived in the vehicle. A male group member may have also been present. They had long hair and were dressed in religious-looking robes. They appeared to be members of the same group who dropped off Holly, but of course that connection had not been made yet. Only Sister Susan spoke to Dean's family. She told them that Dean and Tina had joined their religious group and didn't want to have any contact with their families. In addition, they had given up all of their possessions. Investigators would later say that they believed the police had taken the group members into custody, but no records have been located yet. The police told Dean's mother that it appeared as though Dean was missing voluntarily, so it appears as though they didn't really do much in terms of an investigation. The families of Dean and Tina did not know what happened to them or to their daughter Holly. They only knew that she was missing along with her parents. In January 2022, the remains of Dean and Tina were identified using genetic genealogy. In June of 2022, the authorities found the couple's daughter, 42-year-old Holly Marie Clouse, alive and well. Efforts were made to reunite her with the Clouse and Lynn families. The people who raised Holly are not considered suspects by the police. The investigation into the double homicide of her parents is continuing. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few items that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1 is the Jesus movement, which I talked about before in the background. This was an evangelical Christian movement that emerged sometime around 1969 on the West Coast. The members of this movement were often referred to as Jesus people. On occasion, they were referred to as Jesus freaks. That's what Dean's family had called them. The movement comprised a number of independent groups that had similar beliefs, as opposed to being a unified and organized church. Here are a few attributes and beliefs of the group members. Many of the members were nomadic. They wandered throughout the United States, Central America, and Europe, although some of the groups did operate traditional churches, like with a physical location and services. The majority of the members were young people. Some were considered hippies. Many of the members struggled with regulating their intake of substances. Psychedelics and marijuana were among the preferred drugs. The members believed in living in a manner similar to early Christians. For example, the members embraced the nomadic lifestyle, often lived in poverty, and some of them did not believe in having possessions. The Jesus movement was considered to be a revival. It resulted in the conversion of many people to the Christian faith. The movement subsided substantially by the late 1970s. However, technically it was active into the late 1980s. Item number 2, was the Jesus movement involved in the case of Dean, Tina, and Holly? The behavior of the women who dropped off Holly and delivered the car is consistent with the Jesus movement. For example, they didn't like possessions, had robes on, and were barefoot. These behaviors connect to an early Christian lifestyle. When considering Dean's involvement with the Jesus movement prior to his relationship with Tina, I think it's reasonable to believe that Dean and Tina became active in this religious group. The couple was young, struggling financially, and had a sense of adventure. Item number 3, if members of the Jesus movement were involved in this case, were they involved in the double homicide? The timing of key elements in this case presents a real problem for figuring out who was responsible. It's not clear if Dean and Tina were alive when their daughter was given to the church or when their car was returned to Florida. All the events happen around the same time, but the order of events is not known. The couple could have abandoned their daughter and their vehicle when they ran off with the religious group, only to be murdered shortly afterward. Or they could have been murdered, and that's how the religious group members gained control of their daughter and car. With this in mind, let's look at the evidence both for and against the idea that the group members were involved in the murders, starting with the inculpatory evidence. The members had the couple's daughter. It's unlikely the couple would have voluntarily given up their daughter. The members had possession of the couple's vehicle. There's no indication that the couple no longer wanted the car. Sister Susan made comments suggesting that the couple no longer wanted contact with their families. It's kind of like she was saying, don't bother looking for them. Now moving to the exculpatory evidence, it doesn't make sense that whoever killed the couple would have spared their daughter only to give her away. There have been cases where someone murdered a parent or parents to get a child to raise as their own, but I cannot recall any case where someone murdered a child's parents only to give the child away. Doing that is a good way to get caught for the murder and runs contrary to the motive of raising the child themselves. Similarly, the behavior with the vehicle does not seem to be consistent with murder. They could have sold the vehicle to someone else or simply disposed of it. If they did commit the murders, making contact with the family members of one of the victims was a great way to get arrested. When considering the evidence, do I think the religious group was involved in the murders? Well, as I mentioned, the order of events is crucial here. If the murder took place first, then I think it's likely that the religious group members were involved, like they committed the homicides, then took the couple's daughter and car. If the murder took place afterward, then the group members may still have been responsible, but it seems less likely. Motive is another real problem in this case. The most likely motive would have been someone wanting to attack Tina. Perhaps Dean was killed because he was in the way. The police who examined the crime scene believed that Dean was trying to protect Tina, which is consistent with this theory. What may have happened here is that one of the group members went rogue and killed the couple, and the other group members had nothing to do with it. They were just left to pick up the pieces, and they did the best they could. It's unusual that they lied about the couple being alive, but that alone doesn't mean they were guilty. Now moving to the last item, number 4. The most astounding element of this case is the fact that Holly Marie Clouse was found alive over 40 years after her parents were murdered. At the time making this video, it's not clear what Holly knew about her upbringing. That information has not been released. Did she know that the people who raised her were not her biological parents? Was she ever told the stories about the women who dropped her off at the church? From those stories, was she able to piece together that her biological parents may have been part of a religious group? Regardless of what she did or did not know, Holly has a lot of information to process. She has been given news that no one would ever expect to hear. Those are my thoughts on the case of Dean, Tina, and Holly Clouse. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.